This show furnished by Carl Gerber and Employment Lawyer Group.
Radio, talk radio here, 790 KABC. I'm Carl Gerber. You're listening to the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. We're going to talk about some fun stuff tonight, like old-time North Hollywood for a reason. But before we begin the show, I have to tell you, this is going to be an emotional show. And I want to remind the listeners how devastating it is, the facts that lead up to one of these employment lawsuits, for both the employer and for the employee. There's a lot of hardened mediators, arbitrators, and judges out there who really they haven't spent enough time representing employees, or trying to find out where they come from. They just don't understand that when someone has a job and they get fired, it can cause this type of emotional distress, a breakdown that it's very hard to understand. On Monday, I found out one of my dear clients from Oxnard, he died untimely at 50. Were it not for him losing the job he had for almost 20 years, he got fired by Human Resources for missing one day of work. He thought he was on vacation. He should have been on family medical leave, and I think his death just wouldn't have occurred if things had been different. And this is an example where I'm just compelled to use this moment to send my blessings out to David and his family, and remind all of us that a job, a career, or a position, it can't be replaced easily. It really affects employees. These cases are very, very real. Many of these workplace lawsuits, they bring on a series of emotions in both the employee bringing the case and oftentimes the owner of a company, if it's small enough, or the supervisors and the managers in the situation. When you go into the market to buy napkins, you don't walk up to the checker and start giving him your life story before you make the purchase for napkins. You just don't do that. And I suspect that if you're going to go to a dentist, you don't go to the dentist and give him your whole life story as you're sitting in the dental chair before he's going to start doing his thing with you. But employment lawyers of both sides of these cases, it's a very different situation. Being sued is a traumatic experience. And the conduct that is being sued over is also very traumatic. And I believe this is why employees and employers go through these accounts of their life stories, either at the beginning of the case or when they think it's right before it's going to end. Employees who bring the cases often spend a lot of time pondering whether they should sue their employer, even though the employer did them wrong. Sometimes so much time that a $200,000 or $1 million case ends up being gutted by statute of limitations and being reduced to most of the conduct can't be sued about because the employee spent so much time pondering whether they should sue an employer who did them wrong. Employers go through various stages of emotions when they realize they've been sued. And it also is because sometimes, hopefully, they realize they've done something wrong and it's going to cost them a lot of money. It's not uncommon for a business owner to go through these stages in mediation, arbitration, a trial, or when they lose. Being sued it's personal betrayal for a lot of employers. Suing often requires these vast justifications from the employees about why they should do this, even though they really should do it. It's the right thing to do. They got screwed. So tonight you're going to hear an enactment of emotional ups and downs of a small business owner being sued. She's going to weave back and forth through her earlier life, explaining where she came from, which is supposed to justify in her mind her lawlessness. She's going to explain that she became something after she had a background that involved a lot of suffering, and this is supposed to explain her misbehavior, but it doesn't. In our last episode, we met 29-year-old Rosa Santos Rosenstein. She was a real estate assistant for the great Lisa Glickman, realtor, the high rollers in the estate neighborhoods of Sherman Oaks, Encino, the Mulholland Corridor, somebody who only lists these homes that are RE15 or RE40, which used to mean you could have a guest house there, and before the old granny flat law came in recently. These are the big-time homes. And Lisa Glickman expected Rosa to be on call 24/7, answer her phone immediately, respond immediately without paying her minimum wage or for her normal hourly wages, even though her life was severely restricted. She had to rush out of a hair salon with half-dyed hair and nail salon with one hair dyed.
You, Carl, got Rosa all fired up to sue me when she was on your show last week.
I think we're hearing from Lisa Glickman. Your real estate assistant, Rosa, came into the studio last week, Lisa. She sat right where you're sitting. First, she showed me how one hand of her nails were done and the other hand wasn't, because you called her into work when she was in the middle of going to her salon to get her nails done. And before we took a break on the show last week, she took off a sluchie or whatever they call it that was covering her hair, and I saw that one side was her natural black pearl, the other side was some weird ombre color, because you called her into work and had to get her going into work immediately before her hair was even done being dyed.
At least I saved the left side of her hair from that dye monstrosity.
You had Rosa on controlled standby, Lisa, expecting her to answer your phone calls immediately, show up immediately, your mid-seven-figure homes, eight-figure listings, and your high-end rentals in the Mulholland Corridor. She couldn't live her life for a year and a half, she told us last week.
She got away to get married in Maui.
I heard from her that you called her while she was snorkeling and she worked 12 hours from her honeymoon.
Carl, you created me. You know my story. A couple months before Papa died, Mother cashed his tax refund and bought a Sears sofa. It was a chocolate-colored Naugahyde that started out soft before its Abduracy tore. With help from younger brother Craig, the tears widened. When Naugahiding it, fine white synthetic threads poked through, barely tickling my uncovered thighs. But whenever I moved, there was no escaping the puckered gaps that scratched me. By 16, I stood while watching television. 2 years later, I fled the San Fernando Valley and the carpets under the sofa that smelled like cigarettes, even though Craig and Mother didn't smoke. During my 5 years of college, with the exception of Mother's funeral, I stayed away. How could a girl with my background mistreat her employees?
Quite a few employment law cases involve employers who built themselves up from war-torn countries, backgrounds, other hardships, and they're inflicting inhumane working conditions on their employees now in California.
On your first episode, you said you started your law practice out of an apartment north of the boulevard. Is that why you work 24/7?
The working habits of the business owner raised in some part of the valley that used to be called Van Nuys or somewhere else before it was renamed, or it faced these business owners, they faced all sorts of adversities due to their place they came from, maybe a language barrier, maybe even a Valley Girl accent. That can't be translated onto the non-exempt hourly employees of the operation. Non-exempt employees, they have to be paid overtime, double time. They have to receive meal breaks. They have to have days off in 7.
When Papa died, Mother went to work full-time. She got fired from the Van Nuys Hotel for not wearing blue eyeshadow to work. Understand, she was almost 40 when she rumpused around in the rumpus room wearing an orange miniskirt, serving cocktails and letting every drunk beer gardens worker pat her on her buttocks that I inherited. Why is everybody so prissy now?
Lisa, you're dealing with the high-end real estate market. Act like a high-end employer who follows all the labor laws. Besides, this isn't the late 70s or early 80s anymore.
Talking to you, Carl, and listening to your show about the ice chalet at the Laurel Plaza, it puts me back there. A glued-on facade was supposed to distinguish the boxy 60s joint known in North Hollywood as the Calls Apartments. The facade, an atomic-age piece of metal intended to emulate a radio transmitter tower, was fastened over the opening to the front courtyard. Boy, what cigarette butts passed through that entrance. After we moved into a little house in North Hollywood, not far from the Calls Apartments, my new friends let me know the Calls was the official neighborhood sleaze pit. As preteens, we rode our skateboards through the courtyards and identified the remnants of zigzags and condoms. Even after Mother lost the house in North Hollywood and we were on to our own dingbat apartments, my association with the Calls Apartments continued. Once I started to develop, I returned for unchaperoned spin-the-bottle games when the moms were at work. By high school, the Calls Apartments matriculated into gangbanger territory. The white Hesher girls of the late 70s, who wore mullets and packed razor blades underneath their tongues, had either been sent off to reform school or gotten PG. Their younger sisters had died of pre-adolescent lung cancer or been incarcerated for picking fights with eggheads at the Laurel Plaza ice skating rink. By 1984, depending on which door you banged on, you had your choice of bargain price dime bags, shrooms, and what hardcore losers called lewds. I lived on the second floor.
Wow, that's a quintessential passage about old-time North Hollywood. It puts me to tears. I wonder who wrote that.
Are you saying I'm too short to wear my chalk-colored Halston wide-legged wrap jumpsuit with a tie?
She is wearing that, by the way. It doesn't matter where you came from, Lisa, or where you're skating. If you're employing people in the state of California, you have to follow the labor laws if they exist in 2018 it is. Not when your mother worked at a faux wood-paneled bar in the San Fernando Valley almost 40 years ago. When we come back, we're going to pick up where we left off. If you want to call me, Carl Gerber, about a real labor law problem like a job termination, call my office, 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a consistent force in fighting for the rights of California employees. They've represented thousands of employees in cases in which they've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, discriminated against at work, or owed wages individually or as a group such as a class action. The Employment Lawyers Group has maintained a high win rate and a serious record before the California courts. Please call 877-525-0700 for an experienced work lawyer. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, research the firm at worklawyerca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. If you hire the Employment Lawyers Group, your legal problem becomes theirs to solve.
Message and data rates may apply.
If you're considering patch. It's convenient to apply, and the hydrogel technology sends Tiger Balm's proven pain relief right to your aches and pains. It's soothing, safe, and long-lasting. Made from a blend of herbal ingredients, Tiger Balm is trusted pain relief for everyone. So whatever your age or lifestyle, roar back with Tiger Balm. It works where it hurts. Available at stores everywhere.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-501-3689 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-501-3689 for your free author submission kit. Again, 800-501-3689.
It's KABC's new
Talk Radio 790 KABC. You're listening to the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I am Carl Gerber, a real lawyer. I really do represent employees because a lot of the situations that I deal with are awful and traumatic. We found a way of trying to educate the public about this without having to bring people through these events. So we have been listening to Lisa Glickman, who is a fictional real estate character who is the employer for Rosa, who was on the last episode, and you should go to workplacelawyer.org or Carl Gerber, KABC, to listen to the old episodes. And Rosa had a very good case of controlled standby. I told her she was owed a lot of money on the last episode, and apparently she's gone ahead and sued Lisa Glickman. And so we're going to pick up where we left off in this conversation I'm having with Lisa Glickman.
You know, quite possibly the strangest person I ever sold property to had an arbitration provision for his employees, where the arbiter was supposed to only enforce the law as if it was 1976.
Yes. Remus Helms told us about that in episode 6 of the show. It was an absurd provision no California judge or arbitrator, in my opinion, would ever enforce. But the point of this is it's important for employees and employers to recognize that we are in the present and not to look back towards cultural norms that existed long ago.
Carl, my darling, you do seem to be stuck in some other time period. All the talk about Laurel Plaza, the Ambassador Hotel, and Los Angeles history.
It's okay to study history and make a hobby out of it if you read every new case that comes out about employment law like I do.
I, Lisa Glickman, will be the first to say it. Your Oxnard office is, like my daughter Maddie said too many times last year, light. So I guess you do have a sense of what is now. But your Sherman Oaks office is all bamboo chic 2008. Almond cookie dough with dark sepia accents. Let's drink some Java. I'll list it for you. You need frameless glass doors and windows, a retro modern glass conference table. You'll sell it before it goes on the market.
You know, Lisa, I got to get you out of the early 80s or whatever time frame you're stuck in. I think the word's lit. But at any rate, I love people who want to do something that takes zero effort, like go sell this building of mine that I don't think would require much to sell. And with where you came from, you know, where's the hardship, the work ethic you're supposed to have? I don't get it here.
That's betrayal, Rosa. I taught her everything I know. She was my protege in real estate. I can't believe what she's doing.
I thought Rosa was still working for you.
She is, but my attorney instructed me not to talk to her.
How is she getting work assignments if they only came from you, if you're not talking to her?
Right now, it's all by text, and only between 9:30 a.m. and 6, assuming she had an uninterrupted lunch break, a half hour per day before the end of her 5th hour of work.
Refusing to talk to an employee because they have brought a lawsuit against you for unpaid wages, that could be interpreted as retaliation.
I am following my lawyer's advice.
Who is your lawyer?
Obviously not you.
Yeah, I don't get involved in representing fictional characters who are suing other fictional characters, but if there is a real employment defense lawyer who's representing you, chances are I've been on the opposite side of the case with them.
One of my clients was in the market for a multi-level sob. Should I say what that means?
If we have listeners who are not familiar with the term south of the boulevard, I'm concerned. But we're not talking about south of Sunset or south of Santa Monica Boulevard, which has a lot of meaning over the hill. I think Lisa's talking about south of Ventura Boulevard, which is one of the many dividing lines in the San Fernando Valley.
Why is everything with you about class struggle?
The history of all hitherto existing societies is the history of class struggle.
Tell me about it.
I could, Lisa, but why? It's all about how your butt is and if it looks big, but I won't go there with you.
Good times, good times.
Cultural bias and class struggles are quite a bit of labor law. Ethnic stereotypes, perceptions about one race being better for one thing than the other, one sex being better suited for a job than another. I get at least one call each week from someone who's applied for a job and is saying, I've been told only men or only women can be hired for the job. The hirer prefer a man, they prefer a woman, or, whatever it is. And I did have a case in the mid-'90s where it was a famous Los Angeles eatery, and the lady who was running it didn't want a male manager and fired my client for his sex. That was reverse discrimination.
What if I hire only Valley people?
Why would you want to limit the hiring pool to only people in the Valley?
Like you don't know. I am so sure. I want employees who get me. Listen to this. A leggy-haired hostess used her roller brakes to stop an inch from where Ramsey and I stood. She offered us crab cocktails. My beefcake, actually second husband, Ramsey, took off holding Maddie's little hand. Rolling towards the hostess on her white retro skates with pink wheels, former prom queen, Tamara, came to an abrupt halt in front of the hostess tray. "Welcome, stranger," Tamara said to me. She extended the upper second of her lithe body to take a crab cocktail I knew she would not eat. "How's the world treating?" I asked. "How's the world treating you?" "Interviewing at every school in the Valley," she gushed out dramatically. "We'll be getting an early acceptance soon, I'm sure. What about Maddie?" For a few seconds, there was silence on the speakers, and then the song started. "Every time you call my name, I heat up like a burning flame full of desire. Kiss me, baby, let the fire get higher. Abra, abracadabra, I want to reach out and grab you. Abra, abracadabra." Like, I swear to God, I didn't make it happen. My footwork started moving backwards in perfect unison. "Watch this," I shouted out to Tamara. Remarkably, my 129-pound rear didn't feel that big on my less than 5'3" frame. I saw myself walking into Lincoln Savings to cash my first paycheck ever from McDonald's. It paid the deposit for a pair of hard lenses. Suddenly, I was that teenage girl who had just lost 10 pounds in my lower sections, gained 5 pounds in my chest, and bought that killer white skates with chartreuse wheels I wanted since before puberty. The compulsory dance overtook me. Effortlessly, my quads glided backwards. Suicide stops every turn. Whenever they sang, "Abra, abracadabra," I was overcome by mohawk spins, then rolled on one skate like I'd done so many times at the calls. Big-time snooty Dr. Derrick saw it right away, before all eyes were on me. In a daze, he powered towards me like a supernatural force pulled his rollerblades. He circled me gracefully while lifting one wheel off the rink each time he was in front of me. Hands down, he was good. He knew the dance. But I was better. Hell, chicks are always better skaters. And I was a skater. I was a skater before I ever heard of Dorothy Hamill, Mark Hamill, tampons, or even I knew what boys do. After he circled me a bunch of times, he opened his legs widely. I ducked down and did a layback spin underneath him. Imagine that. Me at 34, The room was full of applause. For me, Derek couldn't take it. The cake was on a folding table on the opposite side of the garage. I could tell he spotted the cake. In an exaggerated fashion, knees almost touching the floor. With every stroke of the wheels, he approached the cake installment. Everybody by the folding cake table cleared away. He made like he was going to jump the table. Maybe a falling leaf. He only ended up jumping a kid's table. Yeah, my daughter's 4th birthday cake was on the table. But I knew it wasn't going to be like when I got dirt all over my sweats, when I tripped on the grade trying to get out of the car when we were moving into Fallen Canyon. Axel jumped now. First time in 17 years. One of the most difficult jumps. Why not a 2.5 axle? 3.5 axle. Hell, 3.5 it was. I jumped the cake and went down on my back wheels like I was sleeping. Once the applause died down, he powered towards me. Holy S, Lisa, Derek managed to get out while recapturing his breath. You grew up in a roller gang? My big eyes widened. You could say that? F-man, totally late 70s, no-ho. I did a solo shadow skate in front of Derek and spiraled away as he watched intently before I glided back. Maybe I spent too much time on the concrete at the calls, I told him. For the first time ever, he looked at me with interest, and then his voice changed. It was like he had been brought back to a primordial state. The condemned apartments for low-life seeds. He recited slowly, as if he were reciting sacred religious verse not uttered in a generation.
Ooh, that's a deep passage. We've got to break, listeners. We're going to come back to the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show in just a few minutes and continue on talking to Lisa Glickman.
This house is not for sale.
Expensive mattress you're considering buying is a waste of money. Hi, I'm Christian von Rickenbach, founder of HelixSleep.com, the only place to get a customized mattress starting at just $600. Just go to HelixSleep.com, fill out our 2-minute sleep survey, and we'll design a mattress made just for you with a 100-night sleep trial and financing as low as 0%. And during our Memorial Day sale, go to HelixSleep.com/talkradio and you'll get up to $150 towards your mattress order. That's HelixSleep.com/talkradio.
Hi, Tom Bodette. Motel 6 is still the place to save money as you travel down the highway. Or, for you Californians, the freeway. Whether you're on a cross-country trek on Interstate 10 or a fun jaunt up State Route 1, a.k.a. the 10 or the PCH, there's probably one of our more than 1,400 locations right down the road. Or for Californians, just over the hill. But it's rush hour, so I take the canyon. I'm Tom Bodette from Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
The Online Trading Academy is a leader in investing education designed to generate monthly income and grow your retirement nest egg. Today, you can register for a free half-day class at one of OTA's financial education centers throughout Southern California, including Woodland Hills, Westwood, and Irvine, offered conveniently around your schedule. I'm so impressed with the Online Trading Academy that I've signed up for my own class, and you can too. Give them a call at 888-991-TRADE. That's 888-991-8723 to attend and get 2 free passes to their next half-day class so you can check all of it out. And if you call right now, they'll send you home with a free Kindle Fire 7 tablet computer with access to their do-it-yourself investors kit just for attending. It's loaded with exclusive investing courses and some of their best lessons from the pros. This is a limited time opportunity and seats go fast, so call right now. 888-991-TRADE, 888-991-TRADE, or visit them online at freetabletota.com. That's freetabletota.com. Tablet offers while supplies last, must be 18 years of age or older, and 1 tablet per household.
On Radio 790 KABC News Update, I'm Steve Cumming. President Trump's seat-of-the-pants foreign policy is facing its toughest test yet as he attempts this week to personally broker an end to North Korea's nuclear program with Kim Jong-un in Singapore. In the historic first meeting between the leaders of the technically still warring nations, Trump is prioritizing instinct over planning. Unlike traditional summits between heads of state, where most of the work is completed in advance of a photo op, U.S. officials say the only thing certain ahead of these talks will be their unpredictability. Citing information that comes from a White House official, both the Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post are reporting that President Trump pulled out of the Group of 7 joint communique last night because he wanted to avoid a show of weakness before his summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump agreed with the language in the communique from the summit in Canada, but he took umbrage with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's criticism of U.S. tariffs. That was at a news conference after Trump left early for Singapore. KABC SoCal weather mostly clear tonight, with lows in the mid-50s to around 60. More news coming up and continuous coverage on KABC.com. I'm Steve Cumming, Talk Radio 790 KABC News.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a results-oriented law firm whose goal is to get the client what they deserve. They've represented thousands of California employees who've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or were owed wages on an individualized or group basis, such as a class action. They have a high rate of success. There are few situations involving employment law that they have not confronted. At the forefront of employee rights, they're often the first employee law firm to confront a new legal issue. For an experienced employment lawyer, call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, read more about the firm at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Make your work problem theirs to solve.
You're listening to Talk Radio 790 KABC. You are also listening to Carl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer. I'm still Carl Gerber. Before we broke, we heard Lisa Glickman, a fictional realtor who brought herself up from being raised by a single mother and having adversities, and she's being sued now. And she's circling emotionally. She's talking about her whole life. She's trying to explain where she came from and why she's where she is now, and maybe that's supposed to justify the fact she's being sued. She's telling us about when and even is maybe she started becoming the woman she was going to become when she got hard contact lenses and got some killer skates. So we're going to get back to the show now with Lisa Glickman here, and I've got to tell you, Lisa, I get you. I created you, but your employees don't get you or what you're doing if it doesn't comply with California labor laws. It just doesn't matter if somebody or even your employees, if they get you, that's not what this is about. It's labor laws has standards that are based upon what's reasonable to a reasonable person of the age, sex, maybe background of your employee. Our labor laws are simply technical, and they're unavoidable with legal maxims like ignorance of the law is no defense, no excuse. Negligence and coming to not understand the law doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you out of the penalty. And again, it doesn't matter what the employer's background is. They have to abide by California labor laws as they exist now in 2018.
Carl, I wanted to ask you if you know my employment defense lawyer, Big Al Dumas, the guy I met when he wanted to buy a multi-level Saab.
It's important, whether you're an employee or you're an employer, to get a real employment lawyer and not go with some guy who wants to buy a house that will be impossible to sell later, because seriously, who wants to buy a house where they're going to be walking upstairs all the time?
Carl, you're so right. My late first husband picked out a real gem on Falling Canyon Drive in Encino for our first house before I was a real estate agent. Our kitchen was on the 4th floor. That place had been on the market since the 90s.
So, Lisa, did Big Al Dumas, did he buy the house?
After one of my agents showed him to 10 3 or more stories nobody had wanted to buy for months, he claimed he would have to wait until his divorce was over. I knew it was a waste all along.
Why are you letting such a loser represent you on such an important case where you're being sued for $528,000 for unpaid controlled standby by your employee?
All he wanted was a $1,500 retainer.
Lisa, no credible employment defense lawyer is going to get involved for $1,500, and no credible employment defense lawyer is going to get a case like yours done for less than $200,000, and that's cheap. When I win these cases, I make motions for reversed attorney fees. So the other side, they have to pay my clients legal fees. I see these bizarre charges from vendors on the other side, the core reporters, people like that. They're charging 3 times what my vendors are charging. I shop my vendors because I'm advancing the cost, and the clients don't want to get a lot of costs incurred. I also see hours billed by 3 or 4 people for something one competent person would get done in 5 or 6 hours, opposed to 40 or 60 hours and then paralegal time. Employment cases take a massive number of attorney hours on each side to finish. I don't think Mr. Dumas understands employment law.
What do you think will happen with him representing me?
He'll get you to spend an ungodly sum after the $1,500 retainer's over with, probably after he opens your file. That will take the $1,500. He'll convince you not to settle. He'll do a crummy job defending your case. He'll lose the case for a judgment that's a lot more money than the other side would have settled for, and he'll charge you more than the $528,000 Rosa's demanding.
How do you know all this?
I've seen it more times than pairs of Kate Spade purses your daughter has. The good employment defense lawyers try to settle the cases early on for less than what they're worth if they have merit. They give their clients good advice that they'll lose, or they'll probably lose, and they'll lose a lot of money or spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to defend the case that they're going to lose, or they'll get a $70,000 judgment against them. These small-time lawyers like yours, even if they do defend employment lawsuits, these are not something you do one day, you draft a real estate contract another, you show up for a bunch of short landlord-tenant trials and think you're some trial whiz. These guys, like your lawyer, they give seriously bad advice in employment defense lawsuits.
At a time like this, I can't even say the name Kate Spade. Such a great designer. So tragic. I know this might date me, but before I got married, or PG, and before Mother died, when I graduated college, Mother used all her tip money for the whole week to buy me a non-accessorized Kate Spade handbag. Now it's framed, hanging from my high north-facing ceiling with 280-degree views of the valley.
Sometimes I wonder about Lisa Glickman's ages and date references. They don't quite jive, but I'm guessing, Lisa, if you were to have a 360-degree view, you'd have to be in a tri-level or a lotless lot. That's why you only have a 280-degree view. But back to employment law, as an employer, you don't want to lose everything you have, even if it's a 180-degree view. Those things that you work so hard for, you don't want to lose them because an employee is suing you. Do you have EPLI insurance?
Is that insurance for a designer brand?
No. EPLI, I think, because I'm not an employment defense lawyer, stands for Employment Practices Liability Insurance. It's insurance that covers employee lawsuits, but it usually doesn't cover wage and hour problems like the one you're having with Rosa.
Do you think Rosa would settle for a Fendi Con handbag? I have a few old ones.
Rosa impresses me as being a smart woman, so I don't think an old $3,000 plus handbag would do the trick or even interest her. But if you value her as an employee, you could make a sincere effort to mediate her case and let her know things will be different.
I think it's cheaper to continue doing business the way I am. I don't know how to change my business practices. I'd rather just pay the lawsuits.
I've had employers that settle class actions with me, and then I get quite a few calls from employees claiming that the employer is violating the same labor laws again. There's some businesses that operate that way, but on the second lawsuit, the chances for increased penalties are there, and the employee or employees in the first lawsuit are going to be great witnesses for the people bringing the second lawsuit. If you push the trial of the second lawsuit, you're really asking for some groundbreaking judgment against you.
My insurance will cover it.
What insurance?
I have workers' comp. When the synthetic grass fell out of the cracks between the slabs of concrete on the driveway of a new home on Dixie Canyon, CVI built, the heel of Shelley's 6-inch Jimmy Choo fell off. Even though she's a licensed agent and technically an independent contractor of mine, my workers' compensation carrier took care of her podiatry bills. Literally thousands in pedicures she needed until everything healed. But they said the hot-fixed crystal embellishment that hung over the front of her shoes was really a roach clip with a feather. That's what caused the accident. And that the pumps had depreciated. Honey, $1,895 designer shoes are appreciating assets like a home on Long Ridge. And that was no roach clip in it. It was a Jimmy Choo piece of footwear art.
Workers' comp insurance doesn't cover wage and hour disputes.
What about all the insurance I have on the house I am building on Valley Vista, or my own house, or the office?
Lisa, all of those policies exclude employment lawsuits. EPLI is the insurance for employment lawsuits. It might have a $50,000 or even $1 million deductible, depending on the number of employees you have, but it's better than nothing. When we come back, we're going to talk more to Lisa Glickman, who's being sued by Rosa for a controlled standby. You can call me if you have a labor law problem at 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700 for a real labor lawyer.
High blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit beefy, or even with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Affordable term life insurance is out there. Call Term Provider and speak with Big Lou at 800-481-1458. 800-481-1458 or visit biglou.com. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too.
By the time that we got up there, his room was filled with smoke.
The wind had blown and drifted the snow up against the side of my house, blocking the exhaust from my furnace.
I heard the smoke alarm going off in my friend's apartment.
Without the kid's smoke alarm, my son would not be here today.
Had it not been for that carbon monoxide detector, they would come to school and not have their teacher there.
I grabbed my fire extinguisher and put out the fire.
It makes technology that saves lives.
Get these essential products at the Home Depot.
Results may vary, not a solicitation for legal services. If you owe the IRS back taxes, payroll taxes, or have not filed your returns, the IRS will get you. They can take your property, take you to court, even put you in jail. With one call to Wall, you'll never need to talk to the IRS again. Our average client settles for about 10% of what is owed. We offer free face-to-face consultations in your local area. Call 800-727-0433. That's 800-727-0433.
This Father's Day, pro-grade power tools are within Dad's reach and yours at the Home Depot, where right now your choice of select pro-grade Milwaukee red lithium tools are only $99 each. Drill drivers, impact drivers, lithium-ion batteries, and more. Want to treat Dad like a pro? Give him power tools pros use. Select red lithium power tools from Milwaukee, just $99 each. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. See store for details, valid through June 20th.
The Employment Lawyers Group is a results-driven law firm whose goal is to get the right result for the client. They have represented employees with a high rate of success since 1993 throughout the state of California. They're only paid and if they are able to collect money from the employer, so there's not any upfront fees or costs in order to hire them. They have represented thousands of employees who've been terminated from their jobs, sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or are owed wages in an individualized or group basis such as a class action. Call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have operators standing by. They can also be reached at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Hire them and make your workplace problem theirs to solve.
Talk Radio 790 KBC, Carl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Carl Gerber, a real lawyer. Before we broke, we were talking to Lisa Glickman, who is being sued by an employee for not paying her properly. We started talking about the various forms of insurance that may cover a lawsuit. Off the air, Lisa told me she felt that women that don't wax their legs don't actually shave, and should she consider them to have hairy legs. This is a woman who has the perfection team. So this is a real perfectionist. Imagine a perfectionist being challenged and sued by an employee.
That girl's legs were disgusting. You know, we were talking about insurance. You wouldn't believe how many people who own multi-million-dollar homes don't carry earthquake insurance because of the deductibles.
I discussed this in the first episode, I think. I had a pregnancy discrimination lawsuit where we're in trial. The defense lawyer tells me his client finally met the $1 million deductible, and the insurance company now thought the case was their problem, and they wanted to settle it. I guess his client didn't really care that he paid him $1 million. So imagine the lawyer spent $1 million in fees and costs before the lawsuit was over with. And guess what, or maybe not guess what, because I've only lost one jury trial in my career, you figure. I made $30,000 off winning that trial, and the defense lawyer lost it and made more than $1 million. Talk about probably excessively billed hours.
You know, Rosa has done a lot of work for me. To tell you the truth, I don't even know if she is even Latina. Her accent's very strange. But she does speak Spanish. Some Rico Suave who said he was an agent, not a real estate agent, but an agent for a Mexican buyer, was interested in the listing I had on Mulholland. He pretended he didn't speak English so he would have to deal with Rosa more.
Don't tell me he sexually harassed her.
No, he didn't want me too involved, it was why. Rosa did all she could as a real estate assistant. It was a $12 million sale. No negotiations. They paid the asking price. All cash. And I mean all cash. Title put into an LLC. Rico Suave claimed the person he represented was a cattle rancher in Mexico. Once they closed escrow, they illegally raised the property walls to 12 feet, put barbed wire on the top, all sorts of security cameras, and stationed an armed guard outside. 6 months later, the place was back on the market and listed by a realtor from out of town. There were different views from each side of the house, the valley, the city, and different canyons. All of the windows were replaced with bulletproof glass. Oy vey, what a remodel that was going to be for the buyer. If I paid Rosa $10,000, what can I do?
Rosa's case is worth $528,000, and she has a decent plaintiff's employment lawyer. There's no reason she's going to settle with you for $10,000, but your idea of making an offer that is less than 50 times what the case is worth, it does illustrate a point. Negotiating an employment lawsuit is not like buying a house in a hot housing market. Nobody accepts the employee's first offer or pays it. But there are many rounds of negotiations, and their initial offer is kind of like yours, or less than 10% of what a case might be worth. Experienced lawyers on both sides, they keep negotiating. They don't get turned off by those distant offers. But inexperienced ones, they think they'll be done in 1 or 2 moves.
But $10,000 is more than Rosa makes in a month. 2 months. More.
Cases have values. I often go through an economic analysis of what the reasonable settlement value is of my client's case during the first hour of a private caucus and mediation. You know, at some point, the mediator might tell me what they think the case is worth, and quite often, guess what? We're about $5,000 apart in valuation in a case that's worth $50,000 and maybe $250,000, and pretty close even on the bigger ones. And a lot of times that opposing lawyer, they intimate what they think the case is worth, and if they're a good defense lawyer, their estimate is quite close to the mediator's and mine. So employment cases do have a value. For lawyers and mediators who deal in these cases every day, we know what the case is worth. This is not information you're going to find on the Internet. It does require analysis by someone experienced, and the chance of winning and the reasonable wins, all that kind of stuff has to be evaluated. Rosa, in my opinion, has a high probability of winning, and there's no reason for her to highly discount your case if you're a collectible defendant. Because you have to pay her attorney fees and costs when you lose the case, it's worth more than $528,000. And what it's worth is going to grow as her attorney spends more fees and costs.
This is a no-win situation. What can I do?
Have 3 shifts of real estate assistants and have them just work 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts and pay them overtime and double time, and have 2 shifts if you really think you need real estate assistants. I don't know. I don't know if you need them 24 hours a day. It would be quite a bit cheaper than having to pay for every hour they're waiting to be called or getting the $528,000 lawsuit you're almost definitely going to lose and having to pay your lawyer and the employee's lawyer.
If I had 3 shifts, I wouldn't have to pay overtime. But 4 a.m. to 5:30 is usually a dead time for calls.
Lisa, you could just not schedule anyone then, or you could have someone not doing much for an hour and a half a day. Maybe they could do mailing work for you. They could work on flyers or something.
It might be hard to get real estate assistants for weird shifts.
You want weird employees? Try connecting with Remus Helms and his cosplay actors.
Oh, I'm going to have nightmares. That's another thing. Rosa met her husband when I was forced to be Remus Helms' buyer's agent for that ranch he bought in Sun Valley, where God knows what goes on there.
He's kind of like you.
I should say not. He is not.
I meant that he has a business that seems to lack proper labor law counseling like a lot of small employers do with less than 100 employees. I also meant that I created him.
I heard Remus Helms has a cosplay robot, a very weird one at that, who has a costume where he could not breathe, and a dom on his ranch sexually harassed the robot pulling his foxtail. I don't know why Rosa's husband puts up with that bunch, even if he is making educational videos.
I personally find Remus Helms' legal quandaries to be quite educational.
Can you please not put me on a shelf again for 10-plus years? You have convinced me. I need more advice on labor laws.
Well, Lisa, I'll consider if the audience finds you a likable character. I will be honest, my editor was somewhat concerned you were not a likable character, and right before there was an interest in you, my law practice of 14 years was a partnership started ending, so I had to put you on the shelf. Tonight, you've heard a fictional recount of a small employer going through a series of emotions because she has been rightly sued and is told she's going to lose her case. She's attempted to justify her behavior because of her background. She's taken considerable self-reflection of who she is, how she got there in this moment of a life awakening that happened due to a trauma. She's got an employee suing her. These are traumas for people. Foreign-born workers represent more than 30% of the California workforce. Our workers come from Mexico, the Philippines, China, Vietnam, and India in the highest numbers. Considerably more than 40% of our technology and science workers are foreign-born. The workforce ranges from 15 to 75. We have a lot of people in the California workforce from a lot of different backgrounds. It's important that workers and managers of all ages, genders, and origins, they need to make a serious attempt to understand what is appropriate and what is not appropriate in California in 2018 to people from all walks of life. Employers need to be realistic. If they're going to lose a case, they need to pay the fair value for it. Otherwise, they're going to be faced with a bill for more than merely the judgment on the case. Except for a sole wrongful termination action, most employment actions require the employer to pay the other side's attorney fees. The bill for the other side's fees and their own lawyers, all that's going to probably exceed the verdicts in a lot of these employment lawsuits. The emotional costs of going through the lawsuit, they're serious to employees and employers. There's a big cost. It's even worse if someone loses emotionally. The sides of these disputes, they need to be represented by serious lawyers. I think you've learned all that tonight on the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I encourage you to call my office if you think you have an employment case at 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700. It can oftentimes be too late to sue from the employee's perspective. It's important that these cases get going. I by no means want to discourage anybody from bringing a case. These cases need to be brought. If they're not brought, this conduct keeps going on in the workplace, and it doesn't stop. And the employer starts thinking it's okay to mistreat everybody, and you need to stand up for yourself, and you need to sue, and you need to not be afraid about it. I make these cases my problem. That's my tagline on this show, my problem. And if I take these cases, it's not something I want to have the employee emotionally upset about on a daily basis. I can't control what happens with the employer. Some of the big companies that I get involved with, of course, are less emotional, better. But there's a very emotional dynamic to these cases that I understand, and I want everybody to understand. And that's why we had the program tonight that we had with someone who was going through her whole life scenario, explaining how she got here and why she's being sued, trying to justify it. Listen next Sunday from 7 to 8 on Talk Radio 790 to the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. Thank you for listening.
This show furnished by Carl Gerber and Employment Lawyer Group.